This is the break-even point analysis question for Medron PLC. In this question, you're asked to draw a break-even chart. You're asked to show all the information here, and then we have a change to the information given in the question, and we've defined the new break-even point and new cost line, and with a little bit of theory at the bottom. So, first thing before we even draw the break-even chart, the first thing we have to do is to find out all this information. So the first thing he asks us to find is the break-even point. So I'm just going to write BEP, break-even point is my fixed costs divided by my contribution per unit. We know contribution per unit is my selling price minus variable cost, which would be 30 euro minus 20 euro. So therefore my contribution per unit will be 30 euro minus 20 euro. The fixed costs are 400,000 given here. So 400,000 divided by 30 euro minus 20 euro, so 400,000 divided by 10 should be equal to 40,000 units. It's my break-even point, and it's in units. I have the unit value, but because I'm drawing a chart, I'm going to need to show units, and I'm going to also need to show the euro amount. So how do I find how much? How do I find how much my break-even point is in euros? Well, I have 40,000 units. If I sell 40,000 units, I break even. So how much money do I make if I sell 40,000 units? Well, every time I sell a unit, I make 30 euro. So therefore, my break-even point in euros is going to be my 40,000 units multiplied by 30 euro a piece, which is 1.2 million euro. It's my break-even point in euro. Second thing they're asked us to find is the margin of safety. I'm just going to MOS. So my margin of safety is my forecast output. So forecast output minus my break-even point. Again, if you actually don't even learn the formulas, this question more or less becomes very much impossible to get any marks in. So the formulas are extremely important to know off by heart because they're not given to you. So my forecast output is 60,000 units. My break-even point is 40,000 units. Therefore, my margin of safety is going to be the difference between the two. 60,000 minus 40,000 units is going to be 20,000 units. That is my margin of safety. So my margin of safety is 20,000 units. Again, because I'm drawing this on a graph, how much will my margin of safety be in euros? 20,000 units at 30 euro a piece. It's going to be 600,000 euro. It's my margin of safety in euro. The next thing they're asked us to find is the profit. Profit of forecast output. So if I'm to find profit, two things. I have my total sales or total revenue, same thing, minus my total costs. So how do I find my total revenue, and then how do I find my total costs? So total revenue is the amount of money I make. At forecast output, at 60,000 units, how much money do I make? Well, I make 30 euro for selling one unit. Therefore, how do I find out how much I make if I sell 60,000? It is 60,000 units multiplied by 30 euro, which is 1.8 million euro, and that is my total revenue. I'm just going to write TR. It's my total revenue. It's the amount of money that I make. How do I find my total costs? So total costs, there's two things involved in total costs. Total costs are going to be equal to my fixed costs minus my, or plus my total variable costs. So fixed costs are given in the question, 400,000. So I can put that in straight away. 400,000 is my fixed costs. My total variable costs, how do I find that out? At forecast output. At 60,000 units, I spend 20 euro per unit. So 60,000 units by 20 euro. So every unit costs me 20 euro to make. If I make 60,000 of them, how much do I spend on total variable? 1.2 million here plus the 400,000. So the total costs are going to be equal to 1,600,000 euro. That is my total costs. Last thing I need to show, because I'm looking for my profit, which is my total revenue minus my total costs. So 1.8 million, so profit is going to be equal to 1,800,000, which is my total revenue, minus my 1,600,000, which is my total cost, which is 200,000 euro. That's my profit. Okay, now to draw the chart. This could be a little messy here because I'm doing this on OneNote, just so I can draw and write at the same time. So forgive me if my lines now are a little all over the place, but that is my two axes. Okay, so what I have here is I'm going to need to have my axis labeled. So this is my total sides. This is my cost and revenue line. Basically my euro. So I'm going to say cost and I'm going to say REV for revenue. Everything here that I show is going to be in euros. Down here, so I can just write this because there's plenty of room. Down here is going to be my units. The units go across here, my cost and revenue go up here. Okay, so last thing that I need to show over here now is my heading. And my heading for the chart is a break even chart for the name of the question. I think it's Medron PLC. Okay, so you have your units and you have your your euro column here for your cost and revenue. How do I actually find out what the metrics are for? How do I find out what the numbers are for the chart? Well, I know the units. I know there's three values for units that I need to pay particular attention to. I know forecast output, the amount that I intend on selling, 60,000 units. I also had my break even, 40,000 units here, my break even point. My margin of safety, and my margin of safety down here was 20,000 units. So there are the three things I need to show. Margin of safety, 20,000 units, break-even point, 40,000 units, and my forecast output, 60,000 units. So down here, I'm going to right here, 60,000, right here, 40,000, and over here, I'll write 20,000. All of those units values need to be shown at the bottom. If you're going to draw lines in a graph, you're going to have to show some relevance as to where those lines, what that information is showing. Over here on my cost and revenue, there's a couple of things I need to show. I need to show my fixed cost line, and my fixed cost line is going to be at 400,000. I'm just going to say 400k. I'm also going to need to show my my margin of safety was 600,000. That doesn't fall into the graph. My total costs and my total revenue. So my total cost was up here, and my break-even point. Sorry, so my break-even point was 1,200k. It was 1.2 million. We calculated that up here if I multiply the units by the selling price. So that figure is relevant to my graph, along with my total revenue and my total costs, which were 1.8 million and 1.6 million. So 1,600k, and just above it I'm just going to write 1,800k, and I'm just going to drag that here. Okay, so I have very roughly, again this is very rough, but I prefer that you're just watching, the steps I'm taking to draw the graph, rather than trying to actually read this graph itself. I have all my kind of metrics for where I need to draw my lines now, and find my points. So I can go into that. My fixed costs, as given in the question, and they never change, and that's unless you're told. But the fixed costs are 400,000, so you never have to do anything with that figure to find it. They'll just give it to you. So I'll just draw this. This is supposed to be a straight line. that is my fixed cost line, 400,000, and again it is a horizontal line, supposed to be anyway. My total revenue, so my next line that I'm going to draw is my total sales line. Well, I know first of all, if I sell 0 units, how much money do I make? If I sell nothing, I make nothing. So this is going to be a point on my total revenue line, that point there. Because obviously if I sell nothing, I make nothing, so that point is relevant. Also, other point here, if I sell 60,000 units, how much do I make? My total sales, we've worked it out. If I sell 60,000 units, 30 euro a piece, I make 1.8 million. So I can draw that in on the graph as well. So this point over here is also going to be relevant. So I'm just going to try to map those out, and that would be my total revenue line. Just TR here. The other line I need to draw is my total cost line. So my total cost we found to be 1.6 million if I sell 60,000 units. So if I sell 60,000 units, I make 1.6 million. So this here is going to be 60,000 units at 1.6 million. So go across here. This point here, let's just say, it's going to be on my graph. Where do I start my graph? Where do I start my line, sorry? I don't start it at 0, 0. Why? So my variable costs are calculated like here based on the units that I intend to make. If I make no units, I still spend 400,000. Because the 400,000 is the fixed costs, and that will not change depending on level of output. And I can't forget that in my total costs. So if I don't make a single unit, I will still spend 400,000. Therefore, my total cost cannot go below that. It has to start here. And it works up to 1.6 million, which I would have calculated. It's also going to need to cross my total sales here. So I'm going to have to try to draw this to work into those points. So look, that's a rough drawing, but this intersection here is relevant. That is going to be my break-even point, or BEP 1. That's my break-even point there. Why? Because that area there is the area where my total revenue and my total cost line intersect. So just to have this in here, this is my total cost line. So I can find that on the graph pretty easy. But you're also going to need to show that, look, this is my 40,000 euro units, and it is my 1.2 million euro sales. So if you would like, you can roughly, very discreetly, just kind of indicate to the examiner that these points are generating from these values. That's my break-even point. Two more things that I'm going to need to show. My margin of safety. So if I look at my margin of safety, I found to be 20,000 units up here. 20,000 units. So 20,000 units, my margin of safety. What is margin of safety? It's anything that you make over your break-even point. So my break-even point is at 40,000 units, and I intend to sell 60,000. So this difference here between my 40,000 and my 60,000, again, if I was to have this roughly just drawn up, you get the gist of it. This distance between these 2 points here, and you'd have to kind of show some indication. You can't just write margin of safety or MOS in the middle of the page and expect to kind of show what it is. So I have arrows drawn from this area here to this area, and this is my margin of safety. Now, my margin of safety in euros will also be everything above my break-even point to my total revenue. So it would be this area here from my 1.8 million down to my 1.6 million. But in this question, we didn't have to show it. But my margin of safety in euros, if you did want to show it, would be everything basically above here is be my margin of safety in euros. It will be to this point here going across. So that's, I'm just going to write to the side here, MOS again, for margin of safety. So that's where the 600,000 comes in. It's the difference between the 1.2 million and the 1.8 million. The most important part for margin of safety is just showing the units. Basically, if I don't sell 20,000 units next year, I'll have no margin of safety. I'll be back down to break-even point. The only other thing that you needed to show for the first part of the graph, for break-even point, I've shown that. Margin of safety, forecast output, I've shown that, and I need to show my profit. So for my profit here, it is the difference between my total revenue and my total costs. So this area here, all of that inside in the inside in the gap, all of that is going to be my total profit. So I'm just going to write, I'll just write P for profit. I'll just draw the line. So obviously you understand as I'm explaining it. So that area there between my total revenue, everything below my total revenue to my total cost is my profit. Now, on a different question, because obviously the question that came up here will not be, the same question that may come up for you. If total cost was up here and total revenue stayed at the blue line here, therefore my total cost would now be higher. Then the area between the two would not be profit, it would be a loss, because my total cost would be higher. But obviously in this case my sales are higher than my costs, so if I've sold more, made more money from my sales than I have my costs, I've made more money, so this is my profit. So that's the first part dealt with.